Lyra's Lousy Day by JapaneseTeeth. It all started with an open window. It was the first warm night in a long time, and Bonbon thought it would be nice if we slept with an open window. And I thought it was a good idea too. Our bedroom is on the top floor of the house, and we can get pretty stuffy up there. It wasn't wonderful at first. I don't usually get to snuggle up with Bonbon, but when we go to sleep, because it gets too warm, and I start to sweat like a pig, but with a nice cool breeze flowing through the room, we could cuddle up as much as we wanted to. I know she loves curling up together like that, and I've always felt bad that we don't do it as often because of my inability to sleep. But tonight it was beautiful. I could feel the warmth of her body pressing against mine and the cool night air on my back. It was perfect. At least for a few hours. At around, let's say, maybe midnight, something went horribly wrong. A rogue gust of wind must have carried the entire garden's worth of pollen into the bedroom. Whatever it was, it set up my allergies like no tomorrow. I woke up with my face buried in Bonbon's mane. My nose was completely stuffed, my eyes were so itchy that I could hardly see, and my throat felt like I swallowed a cup of dusty sand. I could feel a whole coughing fit preparing itself. I bit my lip to keep it in, but it was a lost cause. I ended up hacking so hard into Bonbon's mane that my back started to hurt.
Lyra, you alright?
Bonbon extricated herself from the cuddle and awkwardly turned herself around. She was obviously trying to sound concerned, but I could tell she was still half asleep, and I didn't really have any intention of waking the rest of her up.
I'm fine.
The fact that my voice sounded kind of zombie-like made it pretty obvious I wasn't.
You sure? You sound terrible. I just need a drink.
I croaked. I picked up the glass of water that I always kept on a nightstand. Bonbon shielded her eyes from the glow from my telekinesis by shoving her face under the blanket. I could tell by the sound of her breathing that she was already sleeping again. I brought the glass to my mouth, intent on chugging down the whole thing. Anything could soothe my throat. Turns out that wasn't the brightest idea. The glass was fuller than I had expected, and half the water went around my mouth rather than into it. Both my coat and my side and the side of the bed now sported massive wet patches, and my throat didn't feel any better. I crawled out of bed, trying not to disturb Bonbon anymore. I just had to grab a towel from the bathroom to clean up a mess. I made it in 2 steps before stopping my hoof on the nightstand. There was a clonk in the darkness. Apparently I had put the cup too close to the edge, and it was now on the floor. I sighed and crouched down, feeling around for it. Ah, there it was. It rolled under my nightstand. I reached under with my hoof to roll it out. I didn't want to bother Bonbon with the glow of my telekinesis. I bobbled it, and I could tell from the sound that it was rolling under the bed. Horse apples. Forget it. I'll get it out of there tomorrow. As I started to stand up, the tip of my horn caught the edge of the nightstand. At least it wasn't my head, I thought. That would have hurt. Then the lamp tottered over the edge and landed on the back of my head. The world exploded into stars for a moment. Stupid lamp. We never even use it. What the hay did we even have a nightstand for?
What happened?
Bonbon poked her head out from under the sheet.
Are you okay? Nothing. I just bumped the lamp. I'm fine.
I wasn't, obviously. Now, in addition to the sore throat, the rest of my head ached.
Go back to sleep.
She ducked back under the covers as I put the lamp back on the table. She's really sensitive to bright lights when she's trying to sleep. I flopped back onto the bed with a groan. It squelched loudly. Oh, right. I spilled water on the bed. Oh, bucket, I thought. It's not that wet. I can just sleep on it. And I almost did, until I started coughing again 5 minutes later. I lay in bed for another half an hour or so. Well, not really. I was more constantly squirming in a futile effort to find a comfortable position. I never found one. I tried to think of something else. Anything else. Music, maybe. I tried to think of my favorite songs. Unfortunately, my brain had something else in mind. I could practically hear a melody and the lyrics.
Look here, our 3 little ponies, ready to sing for this crowd.
Oh, hey no!
Listen up, 'Cause here's our story, I'm gonna sing it.
Of all the songs I've heard, why, oh why, did it have to be that one?
Very loud.
I could practically hear the volume increase. Fortunately for the coughing, it drowned out. It was hopeless. Bonbon shifted herself to compensate for my movement. She was curled up on the far side of my bed, as far away from all my shaking and noise as she could. I felt like crap, in more ways than one. If I couldn't sleep, there was no reason to keep her up. She was on the planning committee for Princess Celestia's imminent visit, taking care of the desserts. She needed to sleep more than I did. I slipped out of bed, taking care not to stub my hoof on the nightstand again. This time, I stubbed my hoof, the same one naturally, on the door frame. At the very least, I made it down the stairs without incident. I could have slipped on the couch. The stuffed nose, the throat, the coughing, and the headache were all aggravating enough that the weird lump in the middle of the sofa probably wouldn't matter much. But first I needed another drink. My throat still felt like I had swallowed a hoofful of crushed glass. As soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I turned on the light. No more hoof stubbing. I snatched the glass off the counter, and it was probably dirty, but I didn't even care. I assumed that I opened a cupboard, the whole thing would just fall on my head or something. I opened the fridge, and immediately regretted it. Whatever it was we were storing in there had the amazing ability to go really bad really fast. Apparently, the magic circuit that kept it cold had worn out. I'm pretty sure that a greenish-grey miasma poured out of the fridge, formed a hoof, and punched me right in the face. I snatched the pitcher and slammed the door shut. With luck, it would still be a little cold. I had no clue as to what caused the stench. The smell itself was somewhere in between rotting cheese, sauerkraut, and pure death. But getting rid of it would wait until the morning. I poured myself a cup of water and took a slow swig. I immediately noticed two things. First, the water was kind of lukewarm. Second, the cup I had grabbed was Bonbon's coffee cup, and there was still a half an inch in the bottom. Yuck. I dumped the cup and went to the cupboard. My initial assumption of what would happen when I opened it had been correct. After I pulled out all the cups back in the cupboard, thanks to Celestia none of them were glass, I settled for chugging down some slightly cooler than lukewarm tap water. I sauntered back onto the couch, stubbing my hoof into the process, of course, and fell onto it. I closed my eyes and took in the silence.
When you're a younger pony and your flank is very bare.
Oh, not this again. I shoved my forehooves into my ears and buried my face into the cushion.
Feels like the sun will never come when your cutie mark's not there.
I have no idea why I thought it would help at all, given that the whole thing was inside my head. The next hour or so was like that. When the music wasn't assaulting my brain, the headache was pounding. When it wasn't the headache, it was the sore throat. When that started to fade, I started coughing. When I wasn't coughing, well...
So the three of us will fight the fight. There's nothing that we fear. We'll have to figure out what to do next till our cutie marks are here.
I wanted to scream, and probably would have if it hadn't been for the fact that my throat was on fire. And throughout the whole miserable experience, that weird lump in the middle of the couch stabbed me right in the back. It seemed to get sharper with each passing moment, but even so, a massive amount of squirming and rolling around, I finally managed to get into a position that vaguely resembled something comfortable. The headache had subdued into a dull ache rather than a pulsing one. My left nostril was finally unclogged, and as long as I didn't breathe too hard, I didn't cough. And as long as I didn't cough, I could ignore my throat. For the first time that night, I started to doze off. Then I shifted a bit. I suddenly became aware that for the excessive amount of water sloshing around in my stomach, even worse, I became aware of the fact that I really needed to use the bathroom. I have no idea how I hadn't noticed it earlier. I tried to ignore it. Maybe I'd fall asleep before the whole situation became critical. Unfortunately, the situation was already critical. I managed to lay there for about 15 seconds before I had to hoof it to the bathroom. Now, for this next incident, you have to understand that the toilet I intended to use is designed for bipedal creatures such as minotaurs and certain breeds of dogs, and not ponies. It really was a bit impractical, but it was far cheaper than the regular kind. The proprietor had been trying to unload the thing for weeks and was willing to give it to me for a fraction of the cost of a normal toilet. Needless to say, Bonbon was less than happy about the toilet. It did take some getting used to for the both of us, and I have to admit I adjusted better than she did, and the toilet had never really caused me any real trouble. Until now. In my haste, I inadvertently raised not only the lid of the toilet, but also the seat. I wouldn't go into sordid details of what happened next. All I have to say, it took me long enough to get myself unstuck that I resolved to lose some weight, and that I needed to shower afterwards. The shower was actually quite nice, and at least at the beginning. The heat went a long way towards soothing all my various aches. At least until the hot water ran out. It felt like someone had just doused me with a barrel of ice water. I couldn't help but jump out of the shower, shivering and still soaked with soap. In short, it made a right mess out of the bathroom. I must have used 4 towels to dry off, another 3 or so to mop up the bathroom floor, and probably should have gotten an actual mop, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was freezing my tail off, and all I wanted to do was wrap myself up in a blanket. And that's how I spent the rest of the night. I raided the closet for as many blankets as I could find, and wrapped myself into a ball on the couch, and miraculously, I finally fell asleep. I woke up to sunlight that was brighter than it had any right to be, and the sound of Bonbon freaking out about something. He had probably discovered for herself that the refrigerator had gone out on the frizz. The blankets had worked well. I wasn't cold anymore. I was on the verge of melting. I wasn't coughing anymore, but every single orifice in my head seemed to be plugged. My eyes and ears felt fuzzed over. At least my headache was a little better. I tried to climb out of the couch, and got tangled in the blankets, and landed on the floor with a loud thud. Bonbon heard it and rushed over.
Lyra, what happened? Are you alright? I'm fine.
I sounded like a frog.
You are most definitely not fine.
She snorted.
It's just allergies.
I stumbled into the kitchen and blew my nose.
And I didn't get much sleep is all. Well, in that case, you should probably stay home today. I'd love to stay here and keep you company, but I have to help cater Celestia's visit. I'll be back after I get everything set up, okay? You just relax and get some rest.
She leaned in to give me a peck on the cheek. At exactly the same time, I turned around to face her. There was an audible bonk as we banged our heads together. She rubbed her head for a moment and tried again, and this time holding my head still. A quick kiss and a pained smile later, and she was out the door. I figured I'd pass the time by practicing my harp. No matter how terrible I felt, no matter how stressed or sad or depressed, I couldn't help but feel a bit of joy every time I sat down to play it. There was just something comforting about feeling its cool weight on my lap. I tried to think of a song to play, and suddenly a song burst into my head.
They all say that you get your mark when the time is really right. And you know just what you're supposed to do, and your talent comes to light.
Nope, not that one. I started to play a scale. It was simple, a beginner's exercise, but even I had always found a certain beauty in the sheer straightforwardness of the notes. Other ponies are generally more impressed with the technically complex pieces of music. I'll admit, there's a certain satisfaction of being able to play something like that, but my favorites have always been the simple melodies, played straight from the heart. Each note was like a ray of sunlight from the strings. I closed my eyes. I could always see the notes float past, shimmering like gems. Then the gems shattered, as if one of the strings on the harp snapped with a twang. I groaned. It would be a lie if I said I was surprised by this development, but it didn't make it any less aggravating. I hadn't planned to leave the house, but now I had to. Well, I didn't have to, but I didn't have anything else to do, and I really wanted to play my harp again. Now that I had given myself a taste of that happiness, I couldn't let it go easily. Surely it couldn't take too long to get a replacement string. I took an aspirin and headed out. Hopefully whatever curse I had been hit with didn't extend outside the house. Somehow, I managed to make it to the music store without incident. Well, outside of nearly getting run over by a garbage cart and getting attacked by bees, it was a bit bright out, and it made my eyes itch. The shade of the music store was a welcome change. I'd always enjoyed the smell, very old and woody, and a little bit sweet. Pity that my nose was too stuffed to enjoy it very much.
Hey, Lyra.
Luz was working the counter, as usual.
How are you doing today?
Ugh, you don't want to know.
It sounded a bit more harsh than I intended it to. I just wanted to grab my string and get back to my house before something broke, something expensive. I still felt a bit wobbly and blurry.
I just need a G-string.
Oh, what?
Luz snorted and smirked.
A G-string.
He just stared at me, biting his lip to keep from laughing. I wanted to kick myself in the face for wording my request the way I had.
For my harp!
I added, a minute too late.
I see.
He nodded, still smiling due to my unfortunate innuendo.
Well, I'm out of individual strings, unfortunately enough. Only ones I have in stock come in a full set.
How much for the full set?
I asked. I had a feeling I wasn't going to like the answer. Turns out, I was right.
240 bits.
What?
I wish I had cheaper ones, but it's the most high-end set of strings that I have.
I could hardly believe what I was hearing. I hadn't even known Blues carried those.
And they're the only ones in stock? You know that's out of my price range.
My voice cracked awkwardly halfway through the second question.
There's only, like, one other pony in town who ever even buys harp strings.
Why do you think I have so few in stock?
He answered. It made sense, though I was reluctant to accept that explanation.
I don't suppose I could get them for 150 bits?
Sorry, even for you. 200 is the absolute lowest I can go. Beauty would tan my hide if I lost that much.
Truth be told, the temptation was strong. Unfortunately, I had enough presence of mind to remember that Bonbon and I would probably need the money to fix the fridge and replace all of the food that had gone bad. The last thing I wanted to do was make a bad day worse by getting Bonbon mad at me for wasting our food budget. I thought of her reaction when I installed the bipedal toilet, and I decided I didn't want to go through that again.
That's too much.
I said with a groan.
Put in an order for me, okay?
Alright, I'll let you know when it comes in.
Thanks.
I began to walk out. There was a brief yell, a crash, and then everything suddenly went dark. I opened my eyes and still couldn't see anything. My head hurt even worse than it had the night before, and it felt really heavy. My ears were ringing. I tried to stand up but couldn't. Well, my body could, but I couldn't lift my head. I could hear Blues' voice. It sounded strangely muffled.
Lyra, are you okay?
I'm not sure.
My own voice sounded a bit muffled and echoey.
What happened?
I could sense reluctance in his voice.
A tuba fell on your head.
What?
Now, I was sure that the universe was trying to screw with me.
Why was there a tuba up there?
Beauty Brass thought we needed to display more brass instruments, and we didn't have any available floor space.
I really wanted to go off on an angry rant about how stupid you had to be to hang a tuba from the ceiling, but given that it had only been mere hours since I had gotten my rum stuck in the toilet, I didn't really have the right to comment. And it was quite clearly apologetic anyway. No point in rubbing it in.
Hold still for a minute,
He said.
I'm going to see if I can get you out of there.
I felt his hooves fumbling with my tail.
Hey, watch where you're grabbing! That hurts!
Sorry.
He wrapped his forelegs around my flank and gave me a tug. If anybody else, except for Bonbon of course, had tried that, I would have bucked him right in the mouth. But I'd known Blues since music school. He had tried to hit on me a few times before I figured out I didn't really swing that way. We were still on pretty good terms though. We had hung out quite a bit. Still didn't keep this particular occurrence from being more than a little awkward, but at least I knew he didn't have any ulterior motives. But still, I had no doubt that if somebody walked into the store, it would have looked like we were engaging in something very indecent. I heard the little bell over the door ring. Then I heard a familiar voice. Cheerilee.
Hello, Blues. I'm just here to pick up those recorders. Oh my.
Even knowing that she had probably lost any and all respect for both of us, I still wish I had been able to see her face. At least then I would have gotten something out of this debacle. Behind me, Blue started to blabber a hasty explanation.
Wait, no! This isn't what it looks like. I'll come back later.
The bell over the door rang again, and I could tell that the shop was empty except for us.
Well, Beauty is going to kill me.
I know that I should have felt sorry for him, but I was the one with the tuba on my head.
Whatever, just get this thing off of me.
Okay, let's try something else.
He let go of me, and I could feel him getting a grip on the tuba.
On the count of 3, use your telekinesis to push. 1, 2...
On 3 or after 3?
I interrupted.
On 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3!
Both of us gave it a roll, but we merely succeeded in dragging me a few feet forwards, the tuba still firmly in place.
Okay, time for plan B.
Blues said.
I'll be right back.
I could hear him trot into one of the storage rooms. He emerged a few moments later. I could tell from the sound of his voice that he was carrying something in his mouth.
Okay, let's see how this works.
He lifted up the edge of the tuba a bit, and I could feel him stick something inside it.
Hey, what are you...
A foul-smelling and foul-tasting, I was unlucky enough to get it in my mouth, oily substance squirted into the tuba. He withdrew whatever it was and stuck it back in, this time behind my head. I could feel the glue pouring into my mane.
Hopefully that'll loosen your head.
The tuba shook as Blues took hold of it.
On the count of 3, use your telekinesis, okay? 1,
I braced myself against the floor.
2...
My horn started to glow as I got a mental grip on the tuba.
3!
The tuba shot off my head and flew across the room and smashed against the wall next to the door, utterly obliterating a violin that had been hanging there and leaving a tuba-shaped dent in the wall. Glad as I was to have the instrument off my head, it nearly sickened me to see the violin in such a sorry shape. All the musical instruments, except for the kazoo, may it forever be in Cerebus, chew toy, and Tartarus, are works of art, and I sort of felt like I had punched a hole through a painting or broken the head of a statue.
I'm so sorry.
I babbled.
I can pay for that. I hope.
No, that's okay. Some are cheaper models.
Blues muttered around the oil can that he gripped between his teeth. He was quite obviously unhappy at this development, but luckily it didn't seem to be directed at me. Didn't mean that I didn't still feel like a cow pie because of it.
It was my fault that you had the tuba on your head to start with, so I wasn't sure about charging you for it.
I hung around for a few minutes trying to convince him to take something in return of the damage, but he refused. Ultimately, I thought it was best to head home before any more of my crappy luck wore off on him, if it hadn't already. Unbelievably, my journey home was almost entirely uneventful. There was an unusual number of fluffy bug-like things fluttering around. They were cuter than I would have thought, like a little cotton ball with wings. I tried to get one to land on my hoof, but they wouldn't come close to me. Maybe it was the smell of the nasty oil in my mane. I needed a shower. The hot water heater was still down. The shower was so cold it was almost painful. It took me forever to get the oil out. I didn't quite get all of it. Some of it stuck to my hooves, and it landed flat on my face when I stepped out of the shower. Go figure. And then it turned out that I had used up all the towels the night before. I had to sit in the bathroom, shivering until I dried out enough to not leave a trail of water throughout the house. Satisfied that it was more or less dry, it was still damp, but close enough, I finally tried to think of what I would do now. I put the harp away, no point in leaving it there taunting me. It was almost painful. That first taste of the melody was making me so desperate to play something. I sighed. There was only one option left. I have to admit that I had never been a huge fan of the banjo, but I had received one of it as a gift from a great aunt who didn't really understand the differences between various string instruments. I played from time to time. I started out as of a sense of obligation, and as it turned out, it didn't sound nearly as horrific as I had expected. At least not when you finally got the hang of playing it. I tried to think of a song to play.
But it's not as easy as it sounds, and that waiting's hard to do. So we test our talents everywhere until our face is blue.
No, not that. I slid the case out from under the sofa. It wasn't nearly as dusty as I had expected, given how long it had been there since I had played it. It also looked full. Last time I had dug it out, I remembered the clasps and the hinges being loose. Had it fixed itself since then? It looked like it was about to burst open. I flipped the clasps open. The case popped open in an explosion of streamers and confetti, a piece of which landed in my eye. When I finally recovered from the process of getting it out, I could see that the banjo was gone, replaced with a cluster of balloons that twisted into a shape that was probably supposed to resemble a banjo, but more closely resembled a certain anatomical figure, one that I, being a mare, do not possess. A note was taped to the inside of the lid. I owe you one banjo, by Pinkie Pie. I really should have been angry about the blatant disregard for my privacy, but I was too tired to muster any emotion other than grudging annoyance. More than anything, I was unhappy that I was going to have to waste time cleaning up the confetti. And Bucket, she even used glitter? Why? I couldn't help but think that of all the ponies she should know how aggravating it is to get glitter out of a carpet.
Lyra?
Bonbon had a lot of voices, and this one told me I should tread lightly. It wasn't quite the same tone she had taken when she found out about the biped toilet. That was her angry voice. If she had been using that, I would have probably run. This was her suspicious voice.
Yes?
I answered, not daring to turn around.
So, I ran into Cheerilee on my way back home from the shop. She tells me that it looked like you were doing something rather inappropriate with blues in the music shop. I was quite skeptical, given that you've never shown any interest in stallions. But still, you and Blue have been close for a long time. And then I get home and find you holding an inflatable... that. It's a banjo.
I croaked.
At least it's supposed to be.
So,
I held up the note that Pinkie Pie had left.
And the thing with blues. I had a tuba stuck on my head and he was trying to pull me out of it.
I looked straight into her eyes.
You know me. You know I never do anything like that. I couldn't. I love you too much.
It was hokey, but I couldn't think of anything else to say. I just started babbling.
This whole day has just been terrible. I couldn't sleep because of my allergies, and I knocked the lamp on my head, and it got stuck in the toilet, and the hot water heater, and I broke and I tried to play my harp, but one of the strings on my harp broke, so I went to get another one, but I got it too stuck on my head and we pulled it off. I smashed into one of his violins and I feel horrible about it. Ask him about it. He'll...
Bonbon put her hooves over my lips and smiled.
It's okay.
Yeah, we can
I'm
try-
sorry.
Let's give people
You're right.
a call tomorrow and see
I
what
didn't
they
realize until that moment, but I had been enormously tense. As soon as I heard her voice, it all melted away. I thought I had a tough time staying on my feet. We hobbled over to the couch.
I'm sorry I haven't been around today.
think. All right.
What happened? You disappeared on me last night.
I took a deep breath and listed all the things that had gone wrong. Or at least most of the things. I'm sure I forgot some of them, but I definitely hit the high points. Or the low points, as the case was. I had kind of assumed that getting all of it off my back would make me feel a little bit better, but it didn't really help. I just felt like I was whining. But Bonbon had always been patient with me and all my quirks, so she took it in stride. I know this was sappy, but I'm lucky to have her. I get the feeling most ponies would get annoyed at me much more easily. When I finally finished, Bonbon put her foreleg around me and leaned in close. She began to whisper in my ears.
It'll be okay, Lyra. I know what we can do to make you feel better.
I could have sworn she was using her sultry voice.
Bonbon,
I muttered.
I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm really not up to that right now. Not that silly.
She ruffled my mane slightly.
I'm not in the mood for that right now either. No, what you need is a slice of pie. Pie?
My ears perked up. If she was talking about what I thought she was talking about, my day was about to get a whole lot better.
Yeah, pie.
She grinned.
You know what I'm talking about.
I knew exactly what she was talking about. The Sugar Cube Silk Strawberry Cream Pie. The very first thing the Sugar Cube Corner ever sold back in the pre-Pinkie Pie era, when Mr. and Mrs. Cake were just starting out. It was the very first thing they ever sold, and needless to say, it made their bakery, and over the years, they'd perfected it. No exaggeration. It's like they stuffed a whole field's worth of fresh cream-covered strawberries into a single pie. And to say that it was silky was a vast understatement. Forget silk, and compared to that pie, silk is a burlap woven from barbed wire, and the burlap is also on fire. That's how smooth this pie is. If it were a fabric, I'd make a pair of pants out of it, and I'd wear them literally all the time. The pie pants would never come off. Okay, that metaphor is a bit weird, but you get the picture. This pie is simply the best edible object in all of Equestria. It's also extremely expensive, hence why I didn't give myself diabetes years ago by never eating anything else. I hadn't really been planning on leaving the house again after what happened last time, but the temptation was too great. Unbelievably, we managed to get to the Sugar Cube Corner without incident. Maybe it was because Bonbon was guarding me. More of those weird fuzzy bugs were buzzing around. At the time, I simply thought that things were starting to go my way. How wrong I was. I had forgotten my money, naturally, but Bonbon had it covered. A few minutes later, we were sitting at one of the outside tables.
Feeling better?
Bonbon asked.
A little.
I said, smiling. I still felt like crap, but with a large slice of the Sugar Cube Silk Strawberry Cream Pie sitting right in front of me, ready to be eaten, I couldn't feel too bad. My mouth was watering so much, I was afraid I'd start drooling if I didn't dig in.
Hey, Lyra, look at this.
I looked away from my pie to see Bonbon pointing out a cloud of the weird bugs that had been flying around town all morning.
Aren't they cute?
She held out a hoof, trying to get one to land. After a few seconds, the blue puffball fluttered down and landed on the tip of her hoof, speaking cutely.
Oh, that's so adorable. Yeah, it's really cute.
I couldn't help but smile at it. It looked like a stuffed false toy had come to life. Then it opened its mouth. There weren't dozens of rows of teeth, or acidic saliva, or anything like that, but the sheer size of it, it stretched wide enough to swallow a pony whole. For a moment, I was afraid it was going to eat Bonbon's head. Then it attacked Bonbon's cake, devouring the whole thing in one bite. Then it opened its mouth again. My eyes widened.
No. No. Don't do it. Not the sugar cube silk strawberry cream pie.
The pie was no more. It had been eaten, and I wasn't the one who ate it. I don't know what happened. Everything was rushed back. All the misery from the past 12 hours attacked me. The stuffed nose, the sore throat, the headache, the chills, the cough, the stench of the rotted food in the fridge, the sound of the harp string snapping, the weight of the tube on my neck, the embarrassment of getting caught in a compromising situation with blues, the indignity of having my privacy invaded, the pain of being robbed. Sure, it was just pie, but it was very, very good pie, but still it was just pie. But it was more than that. It was supposed to be my sweet relief after a day of frustration, my oasis in a desert of misery. And that stupid bug had snatched it right out from underneath me. My head started to spin. Everything was throbbing, ringing, beating, pulsing, and then out of nowhere...
We are the Cutie Mark Crusaders, on a quest to find out who we are. And we won't ever stop the journey, not until we have our cutie marks.
The only thing I could feel aside from the crush of irritation were tears welling up in my eyes, making everything a blur. I wrapped my forelegs around my head, half collapsed face down on the table in a futile attempt to block out everything. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch something, kick something, whatever it was that was responsible for it all. But I couldn't. There was nothing to scream at, no one to punch. There was nothing to blame for anything except for dumb luck. I let out some sort of sound. Part scream, part groan, part sobbing, part pure unadulterated. I don't even know what it was. All I know is that it reduced me to a shivering wreck. Bonbon tells me those little bugs ended up eating a big chunk of the town, but I don't remember any of it. I vaguely recall her leading me home. I stared at the ground the whole way. The first thing I remember is walking up to the couch. As I opened my eyes, I saw Bonbon staring down at me. I was sitting up, biped style. My head was resting on her lap.
Bonbon, Shh. Just relax.
She began to stroke my mane. I felt like a little filly being comforted by her mother. But it didn't matter. I was so relaxed that I was numb, like I had no bones in my body. My legs all felt like noodles. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Surprisingly, I was able to.
But what about the dinner you were helping to cater? It got cancelled. Celestia had some sort of emergency to tend to. Although, given how your day went, I might have stayed here with you anyway. You don't have to do that,
I said softly.
That's okay. I want to.
She pressed her hoof to her lips and then pressed her hoof against my cheeks.
I think you need me more than Princess Celestia needs her candy. I hear she prefers cake anyway. Thanks. You're welcome. We'll go get you another piece of pie tomorrow when those things are all gone. Okay? Sounds good to me.
I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep. The end.